talk about this common thread of sweethearts. You have them, I have them, every human has them. It's one of the things what it means to be human. And we talk about this common thread that Jason has lost over the years. And I'm talking about him having to clean out a couple lockers because kids didn't come back to school permanently. And they had this common thread of hopelessness. And we talk about there's some other common threads that people have. And I always tell everyone, students, parents, and teachers, I said, there's this common thread that we all share. It's what it means to be human. And that's, we all have this deep need for meaning or purpose in our life. And kids that don't have it, people that don't have it, end up in pretty dark places. And the other thing is this thing called human acceptance. We're just a bunch of pack animals, and we need the acceptance of people. I told you before the age of 10, the only thing a kid needs is one thing, to belong. That's all they search for. They're really just in the process of discovering meaning, discovering purpose. And you know, when I talk to parents about youth sports, and I say the disaster of youth sports, it's about dad's meaning, dad's purpose. And Jason literally nearly grabbed me by the ears with my own son when he was about 6 or 7, and I wanted him to be a wrestler because I was a wrestler, and he had to feel the same feelings that I felt and have the same, opportunity to bathe in his own neurochemicals of serotonin and, these good feelings that I've had over the years. And I wanted him to have that. And after he bit a kid and punched a kid at the age of 6, Jason, I talked to him on the phone. I said, Tom, what is Thomas doing? And he just said some simple words to me. He said, he's not a wrestler. That was your meaning. That's your purpose. And it was like, took him out of the wrestling the next day. And here's a guy that competed professionally, took him out. And my job as a parent is to discover my sons, my daughters' meaning, their purpose, and grow it. That's it. And that's not to give them everything they want. It's to give them opportunity. My daughter, she loves the sky. And so what did I do? I put her in a cockpit. And it's not that expensive. You don't have to be wealthy to go to a little local airport and pay $40 an hour to get a kid some flying lessons. Well, she's working on F-35s now because that's her meaning, her purpose. And that's your job as a parent. It's just to grow their meaning, their purpose. And I think we lose sight of that because of everything that he said. From the magazines to the internet to everyone looking as good as they can all the time, we lose sight of that. And I think it's fascinating. I just was thinking about this the other day. When do we assign meaning or purpose to a human life? You ever think about it?
Death.
Yeah, that's the truth, probably.
But
when does it begin? You ever think about it? That we as parents give them their names before they're even breathing oxygen. Think about that. We assign meaning or purpose to them before they're alive. And then we spent the next 10 or 12 years trying to tell them what they should be. That's some crazy stuff.
It's as if you create that agenda when you give them that name. You give them this name that's like starting that agenda for the rest of their life, and they're not even born. And my blueprint, as we mentioned, was wrestling and phys ed and being physical. And I played football, and my father had nothing to do with that. He was too busy doing work, but he nurtured the heck out of me. He was an amazing cheerleader. He showed up for everything, and he provided opportunity. And that fascinates me. And when I look back at it and I watch parents interact with their kids today in this specialization culture, and it doesn't have to just apply to sports. I just was talking to a dance mom the other day who's just driving herself crazy with all the responsibilities and stress, and then all the drama that goes with being a dance mom with her daughter and other girls in competition. But I think that the whole idea of cheerleading and nurturing, where it really rung quite powerful for me was I interviewed 4 area professional athletes' parents. We had a professional athlete in baseball in our hometown, basketball, Jimmer Fredette. I don't know if he just re-entered the NBA. He was playing in Japan. And then a gentleman by the name of Adam Terry played at Syracuse and went on to play for multiple NFL teams. But all these 4 sports, baseball, football, basketball, and hockey, I interviewed their parents. And each parent had their own kind of cheerleading and nurturing approach that was really powerful. You know, the hockey players' parents made sure he did his homework under dome light in the car with all the driving that takes place in, advanced hockey experiences. He got a full ride scholarship and was drafted in the NHL. And, you know, the baseball player, his father never gave him feedback ever after a contest, after a game. His quote was, "Wait for it." What's he waiting for? The question, "How did you think I did, Dad?" And even as a pro, his son will call him at home and ask him what he thought of the game he saw on ESPN. So it was really powerful to hear their parent approaches, and it had nothing to do with the specialization or the agenda that gets created by, well-meaning, good-intentioned, intelligent people that project onto their kids this agenda and this stress of an approach. It all just kind of manifests itself organically, and I think the focus should be on, creating character and creating, an environment where a kid feels significant and accepted.
Even in I tinkered with professional sports. I don't ever really see myself as a professional athlete, but Jason and I wrestled together at a very high level, then I went on to compete a little bit professionally. And as I look back and as Jason had these discussions with me, I had this light bulb that went off and I said, you know what? Wrestled literally thousands of wrestling matches. And my dad used to drive 600 miles every weekend because he was working in Baltimore. He used to come home every weekend to watch me wrestle my last 2 years of high school. I cannot remember one match that I came off the mat and my dad said, "I think you should have done this, you should have done that." Not one match out of thousands of matches. He was just my biggest cheerleader. I mean, he was off the walls and screaming and hollering, but he never once. And that's, Jason mentioned Carol Dweck's work, and youth sports just creates this giant fixed mindset. And when you slap Jimmy on the back and say, "Great home run," what you're saying is the next time you get up there, you have to get that home run to garner my love, my adoration. And now, no parent's going to say that. They're going to say, "No, I don't believe that. That's not what I do." But that's essentially what you're doing. And then parents say to me all the time, "Well, what do I say when he hits a home run?" I say, "Why don't you say, 'Hey, man, you practiced a lot last week. Man, I can't believe the amount of effort that you put into this.'" And then another light bulb goes off in a parent, and they say, "Oh, I never thought about that," because they were always praised for the results of the outcome. And I mean, there's far-reaching studies that say in academic circles that can lead to cheating as well, because when Johnny comes home with an A on his test, what does he have to get next time? For mom to give him a big kiss on the cheek, he's got to come home with another A. So it puts a tremendous amount of stress and pressure on a kid to have to perform at that level just because mom and dad, they want that love.
And that praise and acceptance isn't just from the parents. I mean, I would submit to you that the entire school is doing the same thing with the athletes from their peers as well. So I don't think the parents have the market cornered on that type of behavior.
No, I think that like the concept of being a fixed mindset is we have young people who have this intense fear of failure. And when you have fear of failure, you're less likely to take risks. And now let's go back to empathy. And we like to activate empathy in young people, creating sweethearts and heroes. And you have to have the ability to take risks if you're going to show empathy and compassion towards people who might not be the most popular in a school, or might be frequently targeted, or might smell different, or look different, or act different. One of the things that's always out there, and any educator would agree with this, are students who are on the spectrum. Kids who have different social interactions, and they don't pick up social cues as well. In my experience, I'm seeing at least 1 to 3 kids per class of 27 kids that are, on the spectrum, either identified or unidentified, where they're just socially not interacting the way most kids do. So I think that, if we want kids to take risks and become a sweetheart or a hero for those other kids, we have to instill in them this growth mindset, this willingness to take some risk and not fear putting themselves out there. And we actually, our activator is vulnerability. We celebrate vulnerability. We go into some pretty intense discussion around that topic and what vulnerability truly is. But I think it's important to always kind of remember we're always going to come back to empathy. You know, when we talk about feelings-based decisions, we're going to come back to empathy with mindfulness. When we talk about kids with a fear of failure or an unwillingness to take risks, we're going to come back to vulnerability, which is empathy. So, you know, it all comes full circle.